So, welcome to Coffee with a Purpose, everyone. And this morning, our guests are Kate Leavey and Kathy Carswell. Is that correct? From
Leavey.
what?
Leavey.
Leavey. Okay, I'm sorry.
That was pretty much there.
It's almost there.
Yeah, pretty
All
good.
right.
Right for the recording.
I dated
We
Steve for a month.
absolutely
so I
wanted
say,
it right. From the Spark Hope Scar Revision Project, which sounds, I've looked at your webpage for like 30 seconds and certainly anxious to hear lots more about it. What we usually do to start is do introductions, just so you have a sense of, who else is in the room or in the big room here. So let's start here, Bill.
Bill Ramage, hi. Active locally in town activities and helping Pat Conaway with his Keeping It Beautiful and trash cleanup and all kinds of stuff. So I was interested in Coffee with a Purpose. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm Judy Dixon, and I'm currently the housing equity advocate at Family Promise Metro West. And I've worked for the schools. I've worked in nonprofit in town at the rec department and part of the rec department. I've been involved with Spark Kindness. I'm on the board for PATH, for Adaptive Opportunities, which supports Camp Arrowhead. And I am a member of the First Congregational Church. And I am the proud owner of the drummer.
The drummer. Yeah.
And one of our new music.
Oh, I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Don't let her know that I
Who
didn't.
did a
do
solo?
that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
All right.
it's like working
Solo
with
last
you.
week.
That's right.
Yeah.
On demand.
On demand solo.
All right, and I'm Doug. I moderate this group, also a member of the First Congregational Church. Cindy?
I'm Cindy Bates, 5-year resident of Natick. Trail steward of the Tacawambe Trail. And picker upper at Coolidge Field for Keep Natick Beautiful. And proud member of the Sound Experience Singing Chorus.
Yeah. All right,
It's soon, so
and
she'll
online, we've got Paul.
Good morning, folks. My name's Paul Carew. My day job is Director of Veteran Services for the town of Natick. I also do some specialty work in cognitive behavioral therapy in the Smart Recovery Program. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks, Paul. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm Sarah Hanna, Doug's other half, retired geologist, interested in a lot of environmental issues, and a general volunteer all around Natick, and also a member of First Congregational Church. And that's enough about me. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Kathleen?
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with a Purpose. I'm Kathleen Donovan. I'm a member of the library's Board of Trustees, 34-year resident of Natick, and a very enthusiastic volunteer with Pat Conaway's Keep Natick Beautiful.
Thanks, Kathleen. Carrie?
Hi, good morning. 22-year resident. I feel like a newbie here. Concerned environmentalist, treasurer for Keep Natick Beautiful. Repair Cafe guy coming up, number 6 on May 4th at the Senior Center. Do property management for a bunch of places and handyman for about a dozen clients and stuff, and miscellaneous other things.
Thanks, Carrie. Sally?
Hi, good morning. I'm really glad to be here with everybody and very tickled to hear what our speakers are going to talk about this morning. Of course, I'm, hooked in to Keep Natick Beautiful because I'm Pat's sister, but it's also part of my joy, and also being a part of the Coffee with a Purpose. I thank you all.
Thanks, Sally. Pat?
Good morning. Pat Conaway, Keep Natick Beautiful.
We will. That's a declaration, right? Carol?
Good morning. I'm Carol Berkowitz, and I've lived in Natick over 50 years, and I love this town and love coffee.
Thanks, Carol. Rick?
Morning, everybody. Looks like everybody's very jolly there today. I hate to admit it, but I've only been here 7 years now, so I feel like a complete newbie. But I love the town, and this meeting has just been a great way to get to know people in the town. So thanks to our hosts and everybody else.
Thanks, Rick. Brindley.
Good morning. I've been here, I guess, 25 years now. One kid through the public schools, one kid still in the public schools. Lots of, I've been on a couple committees and task force, and basically just all around pay attention to what's going on in town. And I love the fact that you're here today to hear about this, to talk about this. Thanks.
Brindley, I love your background image, or if that's the right name.
So, I was watching after a recent one that felt a little interesting. I realized that a lot of people are sharing it, and it meant that my picture with my husband was all over everywhere. And I decided that it probably wasn't nice to him to do that. And I don't have a good one of me. And this is actually more how I feel about how I'd rather present myself. So there you go.
Yeah, that particular session broke all records for sharing on YouTube. Yeah, almost 2,000 views. One of the candidate forums for the most recent election. Anyway, well, with introductions out of the way, others may join us as the hour goes on. But again, welcome. The floor is yours. I understand you have some things to share at some point, and completely your choice as to whether you want to just take questions or discussion as we go along, or let you get through your stuff and then,
Sure.
Introduce yourselves first.
We can
Yeah.
introduce ourselves. I see very many friendly faces out there who we know and admire so much, and thank you for all the good that you do for our town. I've been here, well, I should say I'm Kate Leavey first, and this is
Kathy Carswell.
and I've been here 27 years.
I have been here 25.
Wow.
Yeah, so we love Native too.
Yeah.
So we were very honored to be invited. As I should maybe say, thanks to Doug for reminding us, you can feel free to interrupt us at any time to ask a question. We've left time at the end, but we're happy to kind of answer anything as you go. You can just put a hand up or just interrupt. That's no problem at all. I find myself wanting to talk to the big screen, but I think I'll talk to the little screen.
Well,
You
the
sure
the
can.
camera is actually here, so it doesn't, but I mean, you're kind
So
of,
we can just
if you're
look at
trying
you.
to look to the camera, honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't-
Turns like I didn't comb the back of my hair, so I think I'll just look this way. So we can dive right in. We are Spark Hope Scar Vision Project. And we work here in Natick, although we are serving Massachusetts and New Hampshire right now. Kathy is finding her way. There we are. So our mission connects people who are struggling with self-injury or violence-induced scars to free scar vision and a fresh start. And the vision is that by linking therapeutic care and advanced scar treatment, we restore hope. Despair and stigma are replaced with self-efficacy and the belief that healing is possible. And we say that we've kind of evolved that vision really from feedback from the people that we are serving. It's been a very inspiring mission. We've been at it for more than 2 years now, volunteering full time. We do our other work in the in-between, which means we work 7 days a week. We try to cut back because we do believe that self-care and balance is important, but right now to build this, it's what it takes. So Kathy's taking all of her clients on the weekends, and I squash in my sound and spirit work and whatnot in the in-between, but it's a mission we're so honored to serve. So it's what it's gonna take, and it's getting to talk with you folks and getting your ideas that's helping us refine this mission for the next person in line. Why now? So these stats are startling. They were put out by the ISSS. So that's the International Society for the Study of Self-Injury. We work with them. They actually sent us their data before they published it. This is a huge global organization studying this all over the world, and they have confirmed that between 30 to 35% of individuals engaging in self-injury between the ages of 11 to 22. That is not to say self-injury only happens with the youth. It is the biggest percentile. It affects all strata of society. It defies all labels. And that number's too high. And it is not decreasing. This entire organization felt that post-COVID, this number would come down. It's not, because this is a generation being defined by its anxiety. Of course, there's the great book by Jonathan Haidt, Anxious Generation, which talks about how, and I won't go too far afield. Kathy's like, you know too many stats. They are on target. But I will tell you that in the early 2000s, there was even a decrease in stress. Kids weren't really talking about anxiety. It's not to say that we didn't grow up with a certain amount of anxiety. It is how you build your resilience, etc. But about 2011, it started to spike. And that, I wonder if you can guess what that cell phones and the onset of social media. And that spike has only continued. And of course, as you can imagine, during the pandemic, that number just skyrocketed and it hasn't decreased. If you were a lonely child, and I'll get into this a little bit more, a little later into the slides. If you were a child who's lonely and despairing, well, during COVID, the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm, belched out all of this negative stuff. So if you were a kid who found out about self-injury, well, what was happening was all of this new material was being generated. And I don't think most of it was not nefarious. Some of it probably was, but it was mostly other kids who were reaching out because they were in such despair. And what these kids didn't realize is that self-injury is considered a social contagion. It's literally contagious, and that's partly why it just took off.
Can I actually
Yes.
if you're willing?
Yeah.
I might be making too much of the exact words, but you said kids who find out about self-injury. So, I mean, is that if for whatever reasons someone might be inclined to be feeling really poorly about themselves or whatever would motivate them to do self-injury, is the notion that, well, it's just, I wouldn't even have thought of doing that, except I see others doing it, as opposed to just, no, I just hate
It's why the
myself, I'm
numbers are so
gonna do
high.
whatever.
Yeah, it's why the numbers are so high, because it
Okay.
is a social contagion.
Okay.
There's always been
Oh.
self-injury in
Society
for a long
forevermore.
time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's just because that's why the numbers are so
okay,
high.
yeah,
Yeah,
Thanks.
and it is, and we always speak, depending on the audience, we'll speak very candidly here in a way we wouldn't, depending who is in the room. It is something that is effective. So it's called a maladaptive coping mechanism, but it is effective because it actually does bring, if you're spinning and you're anxious and you're being flooded with these images of, I don't know, your life traumas, it brings you to the front of your brain and it brings you to the present. So it is effective. And that's what's kind of horrifying about it.
Yeah, and since you did mention speaking candidly, of course, we did turn the recording on. This is the kind of subject which might encourage people to share personal information. So I just want to say to the group,
Yeah.
we can make this morning be whatever people want it to be. If
Yes.
it turns out that somebody shares something that they would prefer, gee, I really don't want that on YouTube, we could just make the decision, we won't post this recording. But,
Absolutely,
yeah,
because if
yeah.
it is triggering or it floods a
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Who's to say, but I think it's an excellent.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, if you're also really looking at this for an opportunity to have a video out there discussing this topic, we can ask people to kind of make an effort to withhold anything that they wouldn't want shared.
Right, or we could open it up at the end and take the video
Sure,
off
okay.
and.
Yeah, or I think there's also the option, right, Doug, to edit a chunk out of the video.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
If necessary, if, you know, we aren't planning necessarily to have anything super personal and something just overwhelms you when you come out and say it, you know, and you don't want that out on YouTube, there's also the option of cutting that piece out.
Right, good point.
And I have to say, it really says about the people that were in the room.
Yes.
Or in the
very
virtual
close.
room. We haven't really heard that from other places where we've been recorded. And it's
So we
such an
appreciate
important
that very
part of
much.
that, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you might be getting to it, but can you describe self-injury in more specific?
I can,
What do we
I'll
mean
speak
by
of
it?
it in kind of a broad way that makes it clearer, because I think with what we've just
Yeah,
discussed, maybe
yeah,
the methods
yeah.
are not what's important, but our mission talks about, well, I guess it's violence towards self or interpersonal
Okay.
violence are the
Okay.
scars that are representative. And the scars can be made in a myriad of ways.
Like cutting.
That's the primary, but there are many, many other forms.
okay. Okay.
Again, I don't know how candid we want to be,
Yeah.
you know, in light of this, but maybe hold that question
Yes.
until we turn off the
Thank
recording.
you.
So are you talking about physical and mental scars or just?
We're,
physical?
so, and that's a fine point, and that's what led us to our mission. So what we are trying to do, and I would say we're not trying, we are doing, is merging both the healing of the outer skin while the healing of the inner wounds, the invisible wounds, which are the deeper ones, are being addressed. And I will talk about that in a future slide. You are asking the most wonderful questions. But I'll finish with this stat and just say that of that 30 to 35%, and many people balk at that. They're like, oh, I can't believe that number. And by the end, we've convinced them, but that is just the number. It's just the truth. And 70% of that number of those will make an attempt on their life once. 55% of that number will make a second attempt. My kid made 3. And in terms of the violence-induced scarring, the CDC and the World Health Organization, as long as we can hold on to them, have reported that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience domestic violence by the hand of their intimate partner, much of that resulting in scars. So we have bumped into this mission. We were not intending this mission. It was just connecting a bunch of dots and realizing that there was a whole constellation there. And so for me, it's personal. For both of us, it's personal. But if you, I don't know how many of you know my family. I am the very lucky mother of 4 kids. They're amazing. They're much older than this. The top guy there is 28 and fully bearded now. But they were so fortunate. We're a family through adoption, as you might surmise. And this has been the great joy of my life. And if you told me that my youngest would engage in self-injury and would be struggling at the level at which she is struggling these days, I would have said, no way. This kid was a firecracker. She's a phenomenal athlete. I say that with no biological bias. But even as a little kid, you could tell this kid, you know, had been blessed with an incredible athleticism. Lots of friends, funny, charismatic, just such a wonderful little person. And at the age of 13, she suffered a terrible assault, the kind that fractures your soul. This picture still kind of breaks my heart. It's she didn't tell us, because of the trauma, because of her shame, she didn't share that with us for about 2 years. This picture we realized with her was about, you know, right after the assault had happened. If you see, she's got a little, I'd say it's a teddy bear. It might be a rhino. I don't know what it is, but it's some sort of a stuffed animal. And it broke her in 2. And we went right into the isolation of COVID right after the assault. And so, like I said, if you're a lonely kid, we've always been very careful with technology with our kids. And yet the schools were saying it's important that your kids not be isolated, that they have a little more time on the computer. And she had learned about self-injury in middle school at the age of 11, but it wasn't until COVID that she started to engage. And I have to tell you, my experience with self-injury had been minute. I knew it existed. To me, it seemed like something that you read in the Bible. You know, you wrench your
Just out
arm
of curiosity, can everybody else hear? Because online I can't hear. Is it just me or is it everybody else online too?
I'm hearing okay.
Okay, there we go. Never mind. Sorry.
I can also project. That's
Yeah.
my other life. I can speak louder. So what's a mother to do? Well, if you're the daughter of a librarian, you get to reading. So I read every book available, every article I could find. I listened to podcasts, and I got myself informed. I looked for therapists who are skilled in this arena, and I will speak candidly to you, and I admire the entire profession, so I'm not in any way casting aspersions. It was very hard to find someone who is skilled in this arena. And it still is.
Arena of self-harm. or-
Therapists who are skilled at dealing with self-injury.
Yeah.
It is just such a tricky and complex topic that requires nuance, and very few people are as focused on it. Like, it's something that you learn as a therapist, but it's not necessarily your specialty. And that was very tricky. I could also tell in meeting, either virtually or in real life, if that therapist was going to be effective with my kid. I could tell in a minute or two if my kid was going to eat their lunch, which is not to say that I held so much knowledge, but in many cases I had much more knowledge, and it was very tricky to get her the support that she needed. So that also kind of stuck in my brain. I can't remember if there's another.
There is another bit, but you gotta say the thing.
Yes, so part of my research was I had interviewed an esthetician years before, and I thought, she'll know something about skin. I was not thinking anything other than just still gathering information. Her name's Elizabeth Glynn, and she said, well, I have lasers for my aesthetics, so lasers for facials. I don't have the super duper lasers.
Because that's what they call them.
That's what they call them. Now they're like CO2 lasers, etc. She said, but why don't you bring your kid in and let's see what my lasers can do? And in the first visit, she took on, again, I'll speak candidly, linear scars along her forearm. She had 39 other wounds on her body, but she took these on. And in that first visit, she was able to drain all the color out of these really big red scars. And that was enough revision, interestingly enough, for my kid to put her track uniform back on. She hadn't really competed in a year. 3 months later, she was at a national track meet and became a nationally ranked track athlete. And I'd love to tell you it's been smooth sailing ever since. That is not the nature of recovery. And yet it did stave off any more self-injury, which was sort of fascinating. And even then I wasn't thinking anything other. I couldn't stop thinking about that moment of grace, that moment of generosity, and this incredible gratitude I had. And I thought, well, I'm a pretty convincing person. Some might say relentless. And I thought I can probably convince some local people with this technology to help some local kids or people who needed it. And then I started to talk with Kath, and we were colleagues who'd worked together before. And Kathy has her own wonderful business, but she's also supported a lot of nonprofits. And that's when we realized we could help more than some local kids. This had the potential to help a lot of people. And since that moment, we have not looked back. We have had the great good fortune to get in front of amazing people. Like, often we're pinching ourselves saying, I can't believe we're getting in to talk to the inventor of all scar vision lasers. So we work with this gentleman who's out of Harvard and MGH, Dr. Rox Anderson, who himself is an amazing humanitarian, and other people like presidents of laser companies. And we have yet to find one person who's like, this is a dumb mission, you should quit. So we are, we're just moving forward. We have, we ran pilots in New Hampshire and Massachusetts as a proof of concept, although we already knew that the technology worked, existed, we were just repurposing it. And we've worked ourselves through the last 9 months intensely through something called a logic model. I don't know if you've ever had that in your life, but I love a logic model. You take every thought you've ever had, everything you've written, and you put it through this filtration system. And at the end of it, it comes up with the most logical course of action. And so that has brought us to where we are right now, about to launch a new initiative. I think I talk about it more in a moment, but it's called the Therapist Participant 18 Plus Dyad. Now that also doesn't roll off. But what we believe now is that by linking mental health therapists who are working on the inner wounds, who are developing through CBT, DBT, they're helping their clients work on better coping mechanisms, that a therapist should be in the mix to determine if a person's ready for scar revision. And if they are, here's this parallel process that can work of renewing the outer skin while healing the deeper wounds. And if wounds can't be healed, because they can't always be healed, developing that stress tolerance, developing resilience, or those skills that you need to move forward in your life. And many people say, we had one astute young person who said that they felt like they were trapped in the cycle of despair, which is a fantastic way to describe self-injury. And that's, you see these scars, you remember the impulse that you had to create them, and then that takes you further back into the trauma that you experienced that caused you to engage in that anyway. I love this bridge image because it really talks about what we are. We are not therapists. We are a bridge. So what we're doing right now is building with integrity, transparency, this bridge between the mental health therapy world and this world of scar revision that have just never been connected. We talked to the president of the ISSS who's in Brussels, and she said that they've never thought that people come to them all the time talking about scars and they never thought to connect those things. And honestly, it's not as a result of genius. It was just literally being in, as I was saying before, like just being able to connect some dots. Our approach has a big impact, and we're swinging for the fences. We're not looking at the third base coach. We're just going for it. So it's been really, truly exciting to get the feedback from our participants, and we hear them telling us that they feel like it returns their sense of self-efficacy, their belief that they have, a say in their destiny and control over it. They feel empowered. They feel confident. This is how we're getting paid at this point, because we're now, we have to in earnest start raising funds to back up our work. But we give a questionnaire at the end of treatment, and it's the most thrilling part of this whole experience for us, is that it confirms not only that our mission is good, but that we're helping people move forward. They felt stuck and they feel like they can move forward in their life. They feel like that they're finally getting to have a say, and that part has been really thrilling. From our therapists, we're hearing that they have this new tool that allows them to go faster and deeper into a very awkward conversation. And I'll explain sort of one of the tools we created that had this unintended effect, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But they feel like they have a new actionable treatment option. And our medical scar revision providers get to play a significant role in transforming their patients' healing journey. Not only are they playing a significant part in healing the exterior wounds, but that connected with mental health therapy, it has a longer lasting impact. So I love this slide that Kathy created. It kind of says it all in its cheerful sort of a way. So you see the bridge, that's the bridge. My husband's like, oh, it's like they're holding hands. But the bridge, it will be supported by sponsors, funders, and donors. Right now, it's Kathy and I are underneath holding up that bridge. There are 4 stages to our approach, which I won't go into huge amount of details unless you would like me to at some point in our conversation. It involves sort of approaching the bridge of Spark Hope, and that's when we are, it's a terrible word, but essentially we're recruiting the therapists and providers to join our network and to discern if they have people they think this will be effective for them. So it's really about onboarding so that we have all of the people in place to make this happen. And then they step onto the therapist and their client. We call them participants because we're not therapists. They step onto the bridge into stage 1. And this is a really important stage because they start to have conversations about the possibility of Spark Hope. But that also involves a document I kind of alluded to before that we created called Are You Ready for Scar Revision? So it immediately puts it out there because you might not be ready. And also it just might not be right for you.
Or not now.
Or not now, like you actually, you need to develop more skills. And I think that was a really important moment for us. What was interesting about that document, Am I Ready for Scar Revision, is that it became almost like this third-party authority. So it allowed the therapists to have very frank conversations. They're not alarming conversations. They're just, it takes a long time to build trust. And by going through this document, the people who, the clients would say, oh, I need a care team. Maybe I should be discussing this with my primary care. It is, we're dealing with so much stigma. It's literally a stigmata, right? Yes.
If I can pause just first, or not pause, but interrupt, because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
There's a couple of folks that have put a couple things in the
Oh, yeah.
chat. I just wanted to give them a
Perfect.
chance to explain what they were.
Yeah.
And then I also had a question of my own, but
Sure.
let me just display the chat. Brinley, you had put a link to something in there.
That was the logic model that they were talking about. I was having a hard time finding a website that did a good job, but that is a PDF that I think does a pretty good job of what they were talking about for the logic planning.
Oh, that's
Great,
great.
thank
Great.
you. And
And
Rick,
then, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, Rick, you were calling attention to
Oh,
a
yes.
podcast on, was it anxiety? Is that?
Yeah, the anxious
Generation,
generation.
that book that you were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ezra Klein, okay, oh, hey, Jonathan Hay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. My question was who pays for the actual scar revision
Yeah.
treatment? Or is that a variable
So
depending
right
on people's
now,
ability or?
yeah, right
Yeah.
now, it's free.
Mhm.
We believe we can keep it free. There is no natural charity that kind of rides along the world of aesthetics, and the providers have been remarkably generous. I think it's probably because they know that we're living through a second pandemic of mental health.
Yeah.
And they want to do their part, and it's super fascinating because you're smart to call it out. These procedures, this technology, especially if they're using the CO2 lasers, is thousands and thousands of dollars of revision that they're doing for free. And it's interesting because it doesn't take long. It's like, they use the lasers, maybe it's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There is a recovery period of about 4 weeks, and then they come back. We offer between 4 to 6 treatments. And
Sometimes
then
it's just one though.
sometimes it's one, sometimes the people are so thrilled with their excellent creams now that address scars. And we've had people who enter the program and they've been prescribed these pre-creams and they said that's enough, which to us is a success. At any point, people can stop. We've had a woman who entered the program who had a high sensitivity to pain. Because the CO2 lasers, not all of them, there's new technology that's a little less painful. You have to be a doctor or a nurse to be able to use this technology, but then they have access to numbing creams, etc. But it's pretty amazing, and it's pretty amazing to this point that the doctors have been willing to to offer this. The creams, we've had to pay for some creams, and since we are, let's say, underfunded at this point, we're happy to do it, but we've been talking, we begin initial conversations with some pharmaceutical companies. We have at least one provider who's, this particular company said that they would provide the creams.
For free.
So it's a fine question. It is our ambition to make it free and keep it free, and for a variety of reasons. People come to us and they are emotionally and financially exhausted. Many of them are either angry at their kids, or they don't know how to feel about it. I have to tell you, I didn't know about the technology, and I don't know if at that point I would have put out that kind of money. One, I don't have it, but two, probably it was pejorative, but I didn't know where she was in this cycle that was new to me of self-injury. What we believe, and it'll probably be the focus of a future pilot that we run, is how does early intervention, what are the possibilities that it actually staves off years of self-injury?
Well, to that point, and you began, I think, by talking about some work internationally, or that it isn't just work in this area in this country. So, I mean, I hate to say it, that in countries more progressive than ours, is there any movement yet to have this kind of treatment be considered as this is just part of what your medical benefit
should
should
be,
pay
but
for it
that's-
because of the benefits.
Right, there are no codes yet that providers, they ask us all the time, so
Yeah.
it will be something.
Nowhere
that
in the
we-
world that you're seeing that yet, or
No.
no?
No,
Okay.
it's a systemized stigma.
Yeah, and I think, the woman at ISSS president talked about, some of the providers that they actually approached, some of them.
Mm.
And that they actually said, well, how do you guarantee that my work isn't gonna, be destroyed later on? So they they actually have some, so that part of what we're doing is educating people as to what this
Yeah,
is, so.
Yeah.
And it's re-educating, there's a huge opportunity for education, which I think leans toward the preventative side of this.
Mhm.
Again, that'll be a part of a future pilot around curriculum building. That's kind of more my background, so I look forward to that. Because I think this speaks to this generation of anxiety, but also, you talk about how like Spark Kindness has done such good work around anti-bullying. We need to get into anti-self-bullying because the inner dialogue of these kids is horrifying.
Mhm.
And it's this thing, and feeling like you're kind of trapped in middle school where you care so much about other people's opinion. And there it is every day, right in front of your face. So we're not pretending that we can cure all of these ills. We are really honed in on
The bridge.
building the bridge, but we hold these thought bubbles about what we could be growing into. Yes, Judy.
Is there much or any interaction between the medical providers and the therapists?
Do you want to talk or shall I?
Right now, we're the bridge, so we're the connector, so that it would come through us. So if, when a participant comes onto our bridge and then they go for their SPA revision, the treatment plan will be shared with us, and then we will share that with the therapist, but there's no direct connection.
And that could change, so we will always be refining, but at this point, all of the information will be, how do you say it? Unidentified, is that?
De-identified.
De-identified.
It seems to me that there's an opportunity for some clinical professional development for the medical providers.
100%.
Because there can be medical providers that are absolutely gifted and amazing at SCAR revision or any kind of revision
Yes.
that one might want. But without maybe knowing a little bit of appropriate bedside manner.
100%.
Yeah, and we
The
do have-
correct vocabulary to use. the-
Yeah, and we do have some guidelines that we will provide.
This is
our
me
providers.
coming in and telling you how to do it.
No,
Yeah,
we
no,
got that.
no, it's perfect, perfect.
We have no
These-
shows, so dance close and tell us all your ideas,
Yeah,
because
we
that's how
love
we
them.
refine it.
Yeah.
I see both Rick and Bridley have their hands
Yes.
up as well. Hey, Rick, go ahead.
Yes, I don't want to distract from your presentation, but I'm wondering if you know or can later, link us to any literature describing more of the, I guess from the psychiatric view. I know this is very new, understanding this, but one thing rattling around my head is that this is, kind of, it seems like almost a distant cousin of the tattoo movement. And there's a sense in which I think there's a certain pride in that may be a resistance to scar removal, sort of a personal badge of honor that very young people and mature juveniles and others may see as a source of strength or a source of bonding with other people. I mean, I think this is very complicated. I had a little personal experience with it when my son-in-law, who was at the time very young, went through a brief period of cutting, and it just it's just baffling to parents and older people. So that's why I'm interested. Thank you.
It's also an excellent point, and actually Dr. Anderson, who created all of the scar revision lasers or that technology, also created tattoo removal. And to your point, every individual, just like skin is individual and how it heals, what people find empowering is individual. So we're not competing with tattoos. We have had many people come up. In fact, we were invited, which was such an honor, by the Huntsman Foundation out in Utah to their Stop Stigma conference, and we continue to work with them. And we met a woman there who came up and she had full tattoo sleeves. And she said, "Where were you when I did this?" And she did it 30 years ago. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure I was in high school. But her point was, and she had an incredible story of why she got the tattoos, but such regret for getting the tattoos, that's not our business. But many people have shared that they put tattoos over the scars, but it didn't completely hide them, that they still felt them, that what lay below them was still an issue for them. And that's sort of fascinating for us, you know, tattoos or no tattoos. It's really what's underneath and what's being healed there. You wanna?
Yeah, and I think, originally we talked about how we, this idea of struggling with the scars versus if you're empowered, you're empowered. If you wanna, you know, we're not.
Not
Yeah,
everybody struggles.
Not everybody struggles.
Mm.
And so that's why we added that word to our mission to say, if you're struggling with it, then we're here for you. If you're not, more power to you,
Yeah.
you
That's why
know.
the tie into the therapeutic environment seems so important. I mean, because
Very important.
I think it might take a skilled conversation with the person to say, is that an important part of your journey that you want there or not?
Yeah.
And does it have anything to do with even your choice of the word revision versus removal?
So removal is not the word.
Okay, right.
It's revision or reduction, because
Yeah.
you can't really
Okay.
remove a scar, you can
Yeah.
improve them. Most scars can be improved.
Yeah.
It really depends on how the person heals
And their individual skin.
and their pigment. So there's something we've learned that's called the Fitzpatrick scale of pigment, which the darker skin just has a harder time with revision. But they're developing all the time, like the laser technology is just taking off, and we know this much, so we really shouldn't talk about it too much, other than to say it's flabbergasting. And there are many tools, so they might use microneedling instead of using the lasers. And like I said, that we talked to one gentleman with a laser company who said, we are right on the cusp of a world in which if you don't want a scar on your body, you won't have to have it. We are not there yet, but many of them can be reduced, and even small reductions are amazing to people. Like it's, I won't share too many of the graphic details, but it's been interesting to watch what's enough for a person, and it could, there's still room for healing, but they've, you know, they're like, you know what, I feel so much better in my own skin that I don't need more. So we also had a mom who desperately wanted her kid to enter the program. He's in his early 20s and he had scars on his chest, and he's a lifeguard. And the kid said, this might be a part of my future, but this is something I've gotten over. It reminds me of what I've been through, and I'm
Part of
okay
my
with
journey.
it. And
Yeah.
it's his journey. And that's also something that in part in the future with the education of parents, coaches, etc., is to really talk about that enmeshment and the codependence, that this is your kid's body, this is your kid's journey. You can accompany them, and it is often infuriating as a parent that you're like, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't shove their face in it. That's just not something that we're just a bridge at this point. But all excellent questions.
Yeah, and
it-
Brenly, I think you
Yes.
wanted to, oh, okay, yeah. Brit-
Sure. I actually, so I'm really looking forward to you doing the pre-education part. I think that's so important, and I wonder if at this stage of the game you have any advice for people who maybe know kids who are doing that, who maybe parents don't know, or kids that you've learned who've recently turned 18, and you know, then it's a separate conversation because it's not with you know, you can have it doesn't necessarily need to be with the parents anymore. And I'm wondering if you can give any resources. I actually have a family member who has concerns for a friend, and I would love to share resources with them for how to even broach the conversation with their friends, because it because I think they'd like to be able to do that.
Yeah, we definitely can send some reading material. It's on our resource page. Kathy laughs because every time we meet on Monday, I'm like, I have another resource. Because I read everything, and I actually do think that that's the first thing is for parents to get educated, or caregivers, whoever is gonna be part of the care team, part of that kid's team, awesome. We have to learn to have these conversations and taking the emotion out of them. And because that adds to the stigma of it. These are such astute questions because it is tricky, so people avoid it instead of being able to talk about it. But when you talk about it, we also have like kind of a couple of like phrases, like I never say to my kid or to a kid, I understand, I totally get it. Wrong language. You just say, I hear you, I hear that you're really struggling, and then you shut up and you pause and you let them talk. I think we jump in too quickly, and I think we overlove our kids, which sounds wrong. I don't mean it. You can't love your kid enough, but you also can't protect your kid. You can't take these wounds, they're their wounds. And like, I think work in codependency is really important in this day and age. But we do have resources that we can share with the group. We'll do it after we leave.
Yeah.
In fact, that might be just to have a reading list available.
Yeah.
But you'll find it like they're good podcasts.
But if they're on your site, you're saying.
They're on our sites.
So.
Our site is right in the middle of
Of tweaking, we're
massive
tweaking it.
changeover.
Yeah.
The podcasts are a good place to go.
Yes.
There's a self.
Some injury, I have it somewhere. We'll send it, we'll send the
Would you
link to
also
the podcast.
be comfortable with us
It's a really
sharing
good-
their email addresses
Oh,
for
100%.
individual
I think
follow-up?
we're a good place to go.
Yeah.
I often advise parents to get their own therapist or to start doing that work themselves, because it is alarming. It's really, none of us are prepared for it. Even I think therapists aren't prepared for their kid, to therapize their kids. And that, I think keeping that line of, I'm your parent, I'm not your therapist. And but these are all really good questions, and we're a good place to start. William James College, we're just about to talk with those folks. They're pretty
They have a
amazing.
big resource.
And they're particularly
Yeah.
skilled with,
As an advisor, may I join this group?
Yeah.
Hey, one of our chief advisors over there.
Oh, really? Okay.
But excellent questions. And if that wasn't enough of an answer, we can talk offline.
Offline.
You can shoot us your ideas or your questions, but it's a very good one. And I do think that the preventative side of it, getting our teachers more skilled. I can't tell you, and I share too many, because I really revere a lot of these people, but the inadequate reactions to what my kid was going through, the shaming of my kid, that is not a way you're gonna stop a kid from doing this, because they're already ashamed. But that was an excellent question. And I think there's
Yeah. I'm definitely interested in the peer-to-peer aspect of this for the kids in high school, like knowing how to help a child in high school who's seeing a friend. I think that's such an important part of this, the peer-to-peer part.
Yeah, and I think that maybe the peer-to-peer part is so important because they often are way more influenced by their peers than they are. And just having that language of, I hear you, it's really hard what you're going through. And I wonder if, do you want me, if you want to go talk to guidance, I'll go with you, or go to the nurses. But then we got to make sure their guidance department and the nurses are skilled in dealing with it. So it's the peer-to-peer is important. And there has to be a building of skill there. We have a lot of our participants who want to be our spokespeople, and we're not quite at that point yet. Because again, that will require some training
And new ones.
and nuance for sure. Yep.
Cindy.
So before I ask my question, I'll just say that since I reached out to you about speaking here, this memory of when my sister was in second grade, who
If you could speak up just a little bit.
had a friend who was harming herself. And 7 years old, my sister, like, what do you, like, peer to peer, so just that I wasn't really gonna say it, but then this peer to peer thing. Wow, yeah,
Yeah.
so my question is about ISSS or ISSS. And how old that organization is and kind of how it got started, if you know.
It
I
was
mean, that's,
started by
concern-
Janice Whitlock.
Yeah, so there's,
And what- and-
it's not super old,
yeah.
but
just-
it's established.
and where is it based and sort of how, like,
It's global.
it's global, yeah.
But Janice Whitlock is at Cornell.
Yeah.
She's brilliant.
She does a lot of studying of this.
Yeah, so it's, there are, a lot of study happens at Lund University in Sweden, but it's really, it is a global organization. And they've been very, well, deeply inspiring to us, and we've been able, because we've studied what they put out.
Yeah.
It was really formative in the way that we talk, and we adjusted our language, like, even though we're speaking candidly today, in general, we try not to speak in crisis language.
Yeah.
Even as we're talking about this, there's this hopefully there's this undercurrent of, we believe that we can make a difference. We believe that we can bring this percentage down.
Yeah.
Not us, but in this relationship with therapists and
Yeah.
scar revision, just by linking those two incredible fields, that we can be a part of the re-education.
Mhm.
There should be elementary education, not about self-injury,
Mhm.
but about,
Yeah.
kids are naturally, when they start off, they typically have a boldness, and they're proud of themselves, they'll sing every song, they'll color wildly, and why shouldn't they keep that? Like, why do we have to necessarily, I know how development of humanity goes, but that working on that, I'm my own best friend.
Mhm.
And would I speak to myself? Would my
Mhm.
best friend say, you're an idiot because you don't understand, math instantaneously? So that, I think that speaks to the prevention side of it. And then I think when they get to high school, it can be a little bit more candid, but still with nuance. And I'm not sure we talk about this well at all.
I think it started right after COVID, I wanna say, the ISSS, but I'm not.
Oh,
positive
okay.
about that.
Okay.
I think it was around
Was it?
COVID, yeah, but I could be wrong.
I think it might have been,
Interesting.
but
You might have been earlier,
So
okay.
I'll go to their website and read all about it.
we need to do that because clearly we don't know.
Rick, did you have something more you wanted
We
to
found
add?
them through a podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's probably, and I know this somewhat from personal experience, an overlap or not a codependency, with eating disorders, which that whole, treatment industry, if you want to call it that, is been around now for quite a while, and there are wonderful resources in that industry. But I do recall, my daughter had an eating disorder when she was, developed at sort of age 15, 16, and went through college and after. And it is, we saw her in a variety of treatment facilities, both outpatient and inpatient. And there was an overlap in that group with cutting that she spoke of. And that's another reason I think both are dangerous, but an eating disorder is very dangerous and can have long lasting effects. And that's another reason to speak out, to Brinley's point, about these issues, because it may not be simply a single issue. I guess that's my point. And I think you've made the point as well, but I think the overlap in that age group particularly, and not just with girls at all, it's with girls and boys with the eating disorder industry, is probably fairly significant.
Yeah, this is so true. And self-injury rarely rides alone. It usually is a symptom of something else. And you can acquire lots of challenges along the way. Even, we recognize that even in addressing exterior wounds, well, a lot of these treatments make them worse temporarily. It's like a controlled sunburn. So that's something that has to be, carefully negotiated. That's why we love having the mental health therapist as a part of this journey. Even when the scars are reduced, that means something. So it's why we believe this is soft research for ourselves. This new initiative is really proving this model, that this model is the way we should be heading forward. Sarah, I think you have one.
Is it okay? Can I just follow up with
Yeah.
that?
So I'm a psychologist by training. I've been on staff at Boston Children's and Harvard Med School for about 20 years now and see this all the time. It's so important you're addressing this problem. But when they stop cutting, you're taking their coping mechanisms away.
Exactly.
Right? So whatever was going on, it's just like, you don't recommend somebody has a baby, a sick child in the NICU, you don't say stop smoking. You say, get over this crisis and then we'll figure out the smoking part. So I just wanted to follow that up.
And self-injury is
that's
a
your coping.
massive
Yeah,
umbrella term.
you took it away, you ripped it
And
away.
so when my kid gave up that, they found a new form of
Yeah.
injury. Of course, it wasn't scarring, but that is where this parallel process of developing other
Healthy.
coping
Yes.
mechanisms is essential work. And that's not work that we can do. In the future, we might add people to and become a part of that. We can certainly refer people to therapists, but no, that's a fantastic point. Sarah.
So, of course, as I've been listening, I've added a question or comment since I put my hand up. But I have a very, very just specific question, but a couple comments going back all the way to the peer-to-peer thing. I think that's super important because kids know when their friends are doing something and their parents may not know what's going on. And it's so important that the kids, we give the message to kids. I always like to hear it, kids don't want to tell a parent. And, a phrase that I've always liked is when you tell on somebody, I'm not going to get this right, you tell on somebody to get them in trouble, but you go to somebody to get them out of trouble. And so, the difference between I'm going to rat you out for something because I want to make your life miserable, or I know that you need help and I can't give it to you. I am going to go to somebody who I think can help. And it's so important that that person actually can help, that they know to go to. I mean, we had an experience with one of our kids who had a friend who was struggling and they tried to get him help. And the people they went to were like, we can't do anything. And that was so disempowering for the friend, the friends of this kid that was struggling. So, not that this is your mission to do that, but just a
No, that's part of
comment.
it. The answer should be, I don't know how to help you, but I'm gonna, if you want me, I wanna be, I'm gonna help you on this journey. I don't know what the exact.
Yeah, and so, I know our son really was struggling himself, trying to get help for his friend. He wouldn't tell us who the friend was. I think I know, but that, it's like, it's not really going to help for me to pry this out of my son at this point. But anyway, that, I just wanted to make that comment that as part of the bigger solution to this, getting the word out and who can do what. Also, just the kid needs to be ready to accept any kind of help. And they may not be. So throw that out there. My really picky little question is, when you're actually doing the scar revision, so I just got knee surgery, so I am very aware of scars. I have a giant Frankenstein scar on my leg. And so a scar has a texture component and a color component. Does the revision address both, or just one, or just the other?
Yes, I wanted to just say the first, to your previous comment, that in many ways, the peers become a first responder, right? We've heard from pediatricians and from pediatric derms that they're often the first responder, and it is that negotiation of, so to have a resource that you can hand to somebody and say, here's an organization that you can learn a little bit of information, that's important. Oh, sorry, what was the second question?
The second was just.
Have they addressed all the types of scars?
This is really where, again, I can only be a layperson, but this laser technology is amazing. And I will say that like sometimes scars are raised, like almost like my finger on top of the skin. And what this new technology can do, it does do, is I'm gonna make this up because I don't know the actual language, but it sands the skin down so that it's back to normal level, and then it provokes growth down underneath to start new skin growing. It is jaw-dropping. And again, it's dependent upon that person's skin, the way they heal, But that's where they are confident in saying that most scars can be
Revised.
improved.
Mhm.
Um, And then the
Thank you.
screens also are great, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
sure.
amazing.
So I know we've also held you up on this one slide for a while.
No,
Go
that's
ahead,
okay.
Cindy.
That's all right.
I do want to let you.
When
move.
we clear, you're moving us across the bridge anyway, so.
That's
we're
all
good.
So Rick's comment, made me think, his comment about the world of, eating disorders.
Mm,
And it occurs to me that if you're looking, that you have such a hard time finding providers, that I wonder if there might be overlap between that group, that if you reached out to that group, those people might be more interested in learning more about this than, say, the big world of therapists.
Yeah, yeah, it's getting the word out to the different people who are.
Yeah, because they clearly already have a way of talking with young people about their inside wounds,
Yeah,
right, as opposed to maybe general.
I can share that, I have felt that the most skilled therapists, and they are incredible. They are on the front line of this, and
Mhm.
many of them are in recovery sites,
Okay.
doing remarkable work.
Mhm.
I think that it's out there. It's
Yeah.
just in general, we need to kind of bring their training, because they've trained on so many different things.
Yes,
And I
yes.
feel like there's just an evolution that's happened in
Mhm.
self-injury and even in this connection.
Sure.
We've
Sure.
also been told that, we've opened up a whole new field of study. So we've had
Oh,
people
that's so
approach us
cool.
already, and we're just putting
Right
that
now,
thought bubble.
over
We
here.
100%, if that's where it's meant to be, but we want to be really
Yeah.
good at this part.
Yeah.
We've had somebody reach out from Stanford. Boston College might be, interested. In fact, we were told they would green light the behavioral part of this, and I want to go to the Lynch School of Ed at BC. I went and say, help me build curriculum. But that's also down the
Sure.
road. We've got to be
Sure.
here.
I think you
putting-
could tie curriculum, so I was a trainer of trainers in a sexual abuse prevention program for very young children. And so there again, you're being very careful about language.
Yeah.
Needs to be developmentally appropriate, but there was a lot of parallel there. There was about like the acknowledgement that when you tell a grown-up, sometimes they don't hear what you're telling.
Mhm.
And there was a whole little song with the little ones, like, keep on telling like, it just a full acknowledgement that sometimes when you talk to a grown up, they're distracted. They never heard of what you're saying, and they don't understand, they're not helpful. Just to lay it could be tied into like that whole personal safety, right?
Yes.
That when there's a threat to you from wherever it's coming, right? If you're having thoughts that are potentially harmful to your body, your body should be healthy and strong, and that's when you would reach out to a grown-up, and you would keep reaching out to trusted grown-ups until somebody hears you and says they'll get you help.
Yeah.
That not everybody always knows how to help, and that's, and kids get that, like, could you go to a dentist if your foot was broken? No, sometimes, even really smart grown-ups don't know the right thing.
Yeah.
Try to cut the grown-ups some slack too. In the whole,
Yeah.
but I think there might be some organizations and parallels there where it can be
Intertwined.
Oh, yeah.
intertwined in a very soft way, but planting the seeds that,
And building the seeds of self-worth.
and among peers, also
Yes.
like
Yes.
if your friend is not keeping their body healthy, we're gonna have a whole bunch of ratting out for not eating cucumbers on the lunch tray, but I'm sure that experts could come up with some.
Oh, yeah.
way to, like,
I don't
wrap
think
that
this is-
into social emotional learning and safety.
It's just a gap,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And a lot of it is like small shifts, like, don't say, I get it, I understand, say,
Yes.
I hear you.
Yes.
And being willing to
and we were
go-
always taught as reporters, as mandated reporters, right? You never say, tell me about this, I promise I won't tell anybody.
Right?
You always say,
Yeah.
I'm here to listen and I can't make promises because if you're in danger, I'm going to have to get you help.
Yeah, and we're building, it's kind of the beginning of curriculum for down the road, but building that language or the statements with our medical providers. we put it right out there. Just keep talking about the technology, managing expectations, setting expectations, and
It is-
keep a, what we call compassionate neutrality. They don't need to know what
Stay in
caused
your
the
lane.
lane.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah,
But they
yeah,
probably wanna stay in.
Oh
their
my
lane,
gosh, I
'cause
would
they don't
think,
wanna get in.
But, you know, sometimes you have people who are like, oh, went in, that's
And
just
then
not a part of
you
it.
might have a
Mm.
participant who's that way too, who wants to express that, right? And you just have to kind of
So
know that you need to
that's
stay in that,
excellent.
and give them the language, right,
Yes.
around that.
Yes.
In listening to this conversation, I am blown away by the complexity,
Yeah.
by the nuances, by the number of players, by the. So I guess my question is. You're trying to tackle this massive, I mean, every time you talk to somebody, you get 3 more things that you need to consider.
Yeah.
So how do you prioritize? And I guess secondly, how can you identify, or can you identify potential allies? I worked for New York State. I worked in the Department of Mental Health. I know, I mean, years ago, but I'm sure Massachusetts is the same way. There's somebody in that organization that's involved with training and so on, and there are key people. But that's just one little piece. How do you prioritize your work? Because it's so massive.
It is, and that's why we had the logic model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Really helps us kind of hone in on
yeah.
just this process at this point.
It can be completely overwhelming, and yet we've just decided it's not going to be. Which also helps with how you spin it and decide to put this
Exactly.
little box is going there. We do a ton of research and we're super committed to that. We go and we have really incredible conversations, and that helps us refine our purpose. But I think at the end of the day, both of us know we're just building the bridge right now. We're just building the bridge. We want to do that with integrity. We're gonna stay in our lane, and our lane might turn into 2 lanes, but not right now. It's like, you know, people reaching out to us. You know, our ego, I think we have enough ego to build this, but we're not, and if it's only ever gonna be Massachusetts and New Hampshire, that it will be good life work. We get reach outs all the time. From New Zealand, we had reach out within like 2 months of starting to put social media out. We do this much on social media and it's not that good, and I know because I run it and I don't like social media. But we still from that have had reach outs from New Zealand, South Africa, Great Britain, across the country. We're trying to help this young woman because even though we're being really good about focusing here, we had this mom reach out to us about a year ago from Followup, Washington State. A young woman who's done all the mental health work to be ready for SCAR Vision, found out about us. She's 16, she's a very gifted dancer. And we want to help this kid, and we can't seem to get anybody out there. They don't know who we are.
Yeah,
When we say
totally
Dr.
hard.
Rox Anderson, that's not enough to get us in the door with a grin. So there's a lot of work to be done. And yet, if we're gonna do that good work, we have these 2 excellent advisors who said, well, you're trying to do something great. So you have to be patient and stay focused, because right now what we've done is we've taken the participants away from us. And we're saying the therapists are gonna have that relationship just so it doesn't get confused, which is really hard because we love our participants, but it totally makes sense. Where we have good training and, you know, I come from a background in education, but I also was in chaplaincy at Boston College. I have a lot of those caretaking skills, but I am not a therapist. So I need to keep myself in our lane, and she does a good job of keeping me in my lane, even though I'm like, I have a great idea. She's like, nope, I don't want to hear another one of your great ideas until we build this.
Expand the bubble.
Well,
So I just put it in the bubble.
to follow on a little bit for Bill, and I know Rick's got his hand up
Yeah.
again, but, so there are the 2 of you, and I guess I'm not quite clear on whether you're a partner to
We
this,
borrow
but
her brain.
We borrow her brain.
how big is your team? How, are there other, like, are there ways people can help you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. Jen is like a walking think tank. She's
Yeah.
such a wonderful ally in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way, and
Kathy
also-
takes her ideas.
Yeah.
It only takes-
Yeah. Wait a minute. So, actually, we share a mutual love of Micaiah Terry, who.
Yes.
Is helping us.
Could be trying to
helping
be creative, given limited funding, so which they have an intern, and I said to Micaiah, this is your first opportunity to be a consultant.
Yeah.
So he's a,
Yeah,
not pretend a real consultant without being
Yeah,
paid.
yeah.
And we have a young woman, Jayla Rodriguez, who is helping us, and we have these good advisors. We have lots of people, because we've gone everywhere and talked to anyone who would talk to us. So we get, like you're saying, we get a lot of data, a lot of feedback, but we're kind of built for it. I don't mind feedback. I really enjoy it. And some of it, we're like, well, that's a great idea, but put that over there, or we're never gonna be able to do that. So we have to jettison that one. But it is sifting through it, and at the end of the day, still trying to say on this actual page.
Yeah.
We haven't even moved past it because this is where we are. Yes.
We do the same thing when somebody offered funding at the last meeting we were at, you're like, no, not yet.
Yeah.
Funding is on the table, like
All the day.
I'll say
Funding,
the dirty word of any donations, they're
Yeah.
doing this out of their own pockets, wallets, etc.
Mhm.
Obviously, I guess it goes without saying, I'm not being paid for this.
Hmm.
This is a really big problem.
Mhm.
Right, like every time I do an evaluation, I talk about this, and I've got kids who ongoing do this, and some kids are head to toe with scars, like. This is a really big deal, and I always think, how are they gonna function in the world?
Hmm.
Even if they recover, how are they gonna function?
Mhm.
So it's an easy thing, so funding, maybe an intern from the high school. Cause they're great at gathering resources of folks to help, and they have beautiful ideas and so many places to go. But kind of getting that core started up, like, for example, they're doing this study with therapists, now they need to find evidence just to back up, because a lot of psychology, unfortunately, is proving the obvious, right?
Mm.
I always like joke that I went to all this school to tell you what you already know about yourself,
Right.
but we would imagine that if your scars rise, that you feel better. We have lots of anecdotal data to say that, but we need numbers wise data, because likely this is gonna turn into something, hopefully insurance companies will pay
Okay.
for.
Yeah.
Well, they should be
Right?
doing this
Or
work,
in a
right? Charities
benefit,
often do
yes.
the work, insurance.
And not even a billing code, maybe like in the benefits package or
Yeah.
Right.
something. It's I think of it like a reconstructive, not
Mammography.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
like after you get the
after a
nerve, like-
mastectomy, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
something
Very-
like that.
something like that, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I mean, maybe even to develop, an advisory board or something that folks in the community can help with, or think about different skills that people can bring.
Yeah.
Maybe it's business skills, a strategy, as much as you have amazing ideas, we have to put them somewhere. We have to make roadmaps, and they're only two humans, and
That's, at the end of the day, it really is just two humans. Even
Yeah.
as we enter into this new initiative, it will take all of our energy. If we're adding 50, so we've said we've opened 50 spots in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. That will take
Hmm.
all the rest of our energy, and it is what it is when you're building something from nothing. It's what you have to do. But the funding component is our
Is
biggest pain point.
yeah.
And we will be
Yes.
gathering metrics to prove ourselves. We hope by the end of this initiative that we'll prove our scalability, that we will be able to attract more funders. We believe that we should be talking to pharmaceutical companies because they have these amazing products.
And the laser manufacturers and.
Mhm.
And all of this, the good things and the stroking that we're getting, which I don't love the stroking, I'm like, I'm just focused, it kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, but we need them to act.
You
like,
don't
no
have a
stroking,
business?
we need the money.
Yes, and exactly, you don't have a business unless you have some sort of stream.
Coming in, it's just not sustainable.
So let's go over, what do they want help with? They welcome any marketing.
Yeah,
Yes.
Marketing,
Social
business
media,
development, sales, project management, young people to come and, because so much is about young people now.
Mhm.
For example, we know that a lot of the information as we're revamping our website has to come in the form of video. No kid, I spent all this time creating something called the Beginner's Guide to Star Vision.
But no.
No kid will ever want to read that. Their parents will, because we like, oh, here's something that'll help me. And it does have good information in it. But I got to the end of this thing, I'm like, no kid is ever gonna want to look at this. We need a video with young people who tell about it. And then, there's a QR code that they can go to a deeper link if they want to research more. But we need somebody who's good at graphic design, who can animate and make it interesting in a way that I can talk to you folks, I can
You
talk
need
to
a
parents.
custom emoji that will go viral.
We
So,
wanna call it
yeah,
Sparky,
you're
actually,
in-
Micaiah named it.
influencers, and yes.
You're
Yeah.
a 501c3?
Yes.
Okay, and. Oh, my other question. I don't know.
Well, it's how to get to those resources,
Oh,
how to use
and
them.
as a 501c3, do you have a board?
We have the beginning of a board, and the reason that we haven't assembled a board is right now they would slow us down, and we're not looking for, like, when you have a board, you are accountable to a board.
Mhm.
And it's not that we don't want to count, most we want to borrow brains and strategies.
Yeah.
But
Advisors.
we have a board that keeps us moving forward,
Mhm.
but we know that that is a great virtue and that we need to build it. We have patient people who are like, yes, I'll sit on your
Your
board. And we keep saying.
The urgent's trumping the important.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, yes, which is logical, what you do at the state.
I'm
of
just,
business,
you know,
yeah.
immediately coming to mind is the Metro West Health Foundation
Yes.
Yeah,
and that pot of money that's there.
they weren't ready for us.
And that their data about youth mental health in this region. They collect the data, so they
Yeah.
already know. They're like a captive audience funder. But I think they're gonna want to know there's a board and there's a, right? Cause then
We
that
have
might
a
give you
board.
money
We
to
can
hire
tell
the
them we
people
have a
that you
board.
need, like you could hire a marketing person.
Yeah.
You could hire.
And they don't even need lots of people, they really
No,
don't, no, I think there's just so many things they
No,
can
A
do.
few multi-talent, you know, a few people with a.
Exactly, like a project planner
range of-
from BU or something,
Yeah.
would be beautiful. To just set up, okay, this now, this now, this now,
Mhm.
there's so many opportunities.
We had been hot on the trail of starting to write grants. And then we got into the logic model, and even in that, the first thing was forget the grants for a while, but like.
Because we don't have anything. Yeah.
You
So-
need data, and
Yeah,
you- but
we
but you're
needed the
building
data.
data right now, which
Yeah.
I think is the
Yes.
perfect thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And who developed the data tool?
Well, this,
Well, we did, but.
So
That's
I know
it.
Rick's been patient with his hand up,
Yeah.
or maybe just left it up, but
what's the
Yeah.
data tool?
yeah. Rick, did you have something else to add to? Or?
Just quickly, this is something, one of the things you're doing is providing hope. And at the end of the sort of process of recovery, one of the most powerful programs that MEDA, the Multi-Service Eating Disorders Association in Newton, runs is a monthly talk based kind of a little bit on the AA principle of really no question. Somebody shares their story. Somebody who has recovered or is far along in their recovery shares their story. They have, this is now a 30-year-old organization, and I haven't been to one of those in probably over a decade at least. But they had, a full house attending those things, both young people on their own and young people with their parents, and parents on their own came to them. And so there were, well over 50 people at their Saturday morning meetings. And it's an inspiration, and it's something to shoot for, and providing hope early on in these things to parents. They're going to need it in the long haul, because many of them, sometimes it's not as complex as all that, but depending on where it starts, you're going to need to hold on to hope, even when it just seems completely hopeless.
Rick is right. It's a long haul. That's a thing.
And it's not like the world is getting less anxious. It's not
Right.
like things have turned around, so this anxious generation is suddenly gonna feel solid again. The world is an anxious place, and how do you navigate that with a sense of purpose and some forward motion?
Mhm.
Well, it has to be skill-based for sure, but we didn't finish the slide, but I will say that partly what we need is people to connect us, to get us in front of that crowd so that we can speak. And we'll remember that we get to, the part that Jen keeps reminding us, you have to talk about funding, you have to get to that point.
You have
You
to
know,
have an ask.
You
Or
have to
people
have an
ask,
ask.
yeah, you come and see what you offer, so you're offering free medical care.
Yeah.
No strings attached medical, that's
Yeah.
phenomenal to say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
In exchange, yeah, what's your ask? I love that you have an ask. Well, if you have any introductions in these areas.
Yeah.
You welcome them.
yeah. And to finish this slide,
Yeah.
so we walked you through, actually, you can walk us
Lots of
through.
other things,
So we
the whole
did
thing.
the SCAR revision, we told you that it takes 4 to 6 weeks. how long that lasts. And the stage 4 is that ongoing support. And so we read an article early on about Dr. Motto, I forget his first name, but he was very, really important in the world of suicide prevention. And he, at the end of this particular initiative of his, he sent a letter to half of the group, only one letter, and not to the other. And can you guess which group actually had a lasting impact and did better in their journey with suicide prevention?
And it was only one letter.
One letter. That they knew somewhere in the world, this doctor was reaching out, hoping that they were doing well, etc. So we have been committed from the beginning to kind of being that network for them. We're not going to be obnoxious. We're not going to be in their inbox every single day, but we might be there, once a month. We assume some opportunities for continuing ed, or there'll be events that they could participate. Maybe they would join the ambassador program or the peer-to-peer. All of that will evolve in the future, but we know that continued support is important. We've created little gifts that we give them, like this little packet of mirror mantras. So they stick one on their bathroom mirror, and it has some sort of either inspiration or something that's related to those skills that we were mentioning before, DBT related. And that's how we'll put hope in action. We can finally move to the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. Jen can probably speak far better to this, but basically it's skill-based. It's how do you build your resilience, your tolerance for discomfort. And some of that is teaching mindfulness, or it's teaching better interpersonal skills, and things like that.
There's a crisis in youth mental health of distress tolerance.
Yeah, there's none.
You just
They
can't
don't
figure out how to cope.
Hmm.
So the core is distress tolerance. When things are hard, what do? And you don't cut, you don't drink, you do other things.
It takes 5 deep breaths.
And
Parents
parents need to
you
know it too. Parents need to know how to, instead of rescuing their kids.
Right, and the
how do you-
empathy, yeah, right. And just to say with that, doing those longitudinal relationships is you're turning the helped into the helpers,
Yes.
right? You're empowering, maybe you're making jobs out of this, and people can spread the word, and they're turning to your promoters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
We
I
are-
feel so inspired by all of the opportunities that are within this whole world that are out there, stay on your lane, but it's incredible what this could be.
Yeah, well,
So
this
inspiring.
is how it's gonna have to happen from these
Yeah.
kind of grassroots, where charity often does the work that insurance should be doing. These codes that Shriners, for example, does have codes. They don't have to declare what. Move to a cat.
See, we were
The-
there.
they,
There we
uh,
go, yeah.
but,
It's like,
Well,
we
yeah,
went,
yes,
all
I
it says
did.
is we need.
Right.
Right. You were talking about Shriners, so
So
they,
Shriners has these codes, and I had a conversation with a certain gentleman who is a Harvard doc who also knows about insurance. Eventually, we're gonna find those codes and a way to get insurance
To pay
to
for it.
bake it
Yeah.
in, because
But we
right
need the
now,
data.
they're looking at it as if it's some sort of cosmetic choice.
Yeah.
And they're not connecting the dot that this is actually mental health, and they should be covering it. And until then, we're gonna have to do that work. Mostly because we were standing there, we're like, those things really go together and we need to link them. And until then, this is what we need. We need, if you know anybody who's in the industry who is a medical scar revision provider,
Introduce
we
us.
need them to join the network. This initiative that we're launching is Massachusetts and New Hampshire. We'd like to not overburden the providers that we have.
do you need estheticians as well?
We need estheticians.
Estheticians that are medically qualified.
So like at med
Yeah,
spas,
yeah.
and there are more and more of these med spas popping up, and med, because they have to have someone on the staff who is a doctor, who
Or a
is.
nurse practitioner.
Or a nurse
Yeah,
practitioner, yeah. So good point. We need mental health therapists. This is really the heart of
join
it.
the
In
network.
fact, on Friday, Jen took us down into Brookline and we had an awesome conversation with some mental health therapists. Because we believe that this new model is the correct model, because of all of the things, the complexities we've just talked about. We can't navigate those, and we shouldn't. We need psychiatrists, psychologists, we need therapists, we need licensed social workers to join. Not only to help us brainstorm and think and refine, but to actually to be the shepherd who brings that person to the bridge. And it's not like they're recruiting people. This should not be, anybody who is not ready they should have this relationship with a therapist, be engaged in this hard work. And this should be here's another resource. It might not be the perfect resource for that person, but it might be for the next client. And then mostly, we need sponsors.
This is a
funders,
new
and
slide
donors.
from Friday.
Jen Davis put
They are
it.
so receptive to feedback. See? Beautiful example.
Yeah, well, I feel like in many ways I'm a musician, I'm a writer, and I was an athlete. I guess I still am an athlete. All of that is based on taking constant feedback, and I'm a fourth child of 4 children. So I got a lot of feedback. It's the only way you can, it's the only way you keep refining, and making it better. And it's a mission we are determined to continue. And actually, it's really based on, can we get the sponsors, funders, and donors? Because I think we can continue to do our best to build the mental health therapists, the providers network, but without that support, at some point,
But if you're talking like an example, like
Yeah.
Jen was talking to us about the focus groups,
yes,
right? And so,
Yeah, you have to, the perfect thing, you have to pay people for their time.
Mhm.
You give them a $20 Starbucks gift card, for an hour of their time, and that's gonna make the difference. But that means they don't have to hire a consumer marketing group.
Yeah.
Right, that could cost thousands of dollars.
Right.
So it's these tokens things. So to that end though, like in my company, when we ask for funding, we ask for a lot of money, like $1 million or $500,000. They're asking for small money, because it's things like, that's what they need right now, like Starbucks gift cards or,
Mhm.
conference fees, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's,
because we do have to we go in.
like parking, like you guys pay for your,
Yeah, we pay for our parking, but we're going to Orlando.
So we have 15 minutes to speak to all of these are the big laser docs across the country. And it's going to bring our bank account way down here, but we have to go. And we have to make the absolute most we can about that presentation.
Wow. So thank you for helping us.
Yeah, yes.
Try these out right now too. It's
Right.
so helpful to get your feedback.
But
We went a little more than 15 minutes. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
trim it just a bit.
Yeah, right now it's 11 minutes.
I did get that feedback as well.
No, it's because we've been peppering you with
Now.
questions and feedback.
It
so-
actually takes me
Everybody loves
11
it.
minutes and 23 seconds,
done
it.
and it will leave me time to take Q&A, which they
Yeah.
haven't offered me, but I'm just going to take it.
So maybe think about something on your website that make it fun, like they sponsor food for you guys, and it's $30 a day or something like that people think like, cause I don't usually give money, but I would do $30 a day, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's-
Just something and be super concrete and super transparent, where does this money go?
Yeah,
Because
That's
if
a
we are
really
in
good
front of,
idea.
yeah, if we're in front of that, I know you
Starbucks
almost like,
thing
it's almost
is
like
really-
gamifying it, right?
Well, right, yeah, we do that with
When
one
are
of
we
our.
going? April
so
27th or
we're going
25th.
to Orlando then,
And then
the
next week
we're going to,
well, one of us is, I think.
well, it should be the both. of
I
us,
know, but
we'll have
we
to see if
can't
we
wait.
afford it.
Yeah. can't.
And that's the dermatological nurse practitioners.
Practitioners,
And we really want to get to them.
because I think they're really gonna be the ones
Receptive.
that kind of be receptive to this rather,
Yes.
so.
We can put a campaign, help Kathy.
Kathy go to
But don't think of it as big, think of, make very small
Yes, that's-
projects. 'Cause
yeah.
Right.
yeah, you're not gonna do it if it's a big project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, we are at 10:30.
Yeah.
I just want to be a little bit mindful of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
time, but
No, we're
I think
yeah.
this is, look.
We got.
There you go. Got questions, we've asked them all.
No.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, no, and thank you for all of your thank you for inviting us, but also
Yeah,
excellent questions.
Can you, would it be okay if they come back and update in 6 months?
oh,
Yes.
sure, yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just maintain the relationship.
Right.
And give you guys feedback.
yeah,
Please do.
Yeah.
yeah,
And in the meantime, if you something, reach out to us, send us your thoughts, your ideas, or if you can be advocates who get us connected to any of those 3 stakeholders we just mentioned,
Or a marketing person.
Yeah.
That wants to do some
Oh,
good work.
gosh.
This,
The graphic designer.
And you can come back and meet in the co-working space, because I'll hold the meeting, so.
There you
Thank
Oh,
you,
nice.
Jen.
Thank
we
you.
had, in this group, we had been buried for the last several weeks in candidate forums because, you know, we had the local election.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
it's refreshing, my personal perspective,
Stop.
to go back
The
to our
vitriol.
other major idea of inviting, you know, nonprofits and social justice groups and just good people. It just, every time we have somebody like you guys here, it just blows me away that somebody who maybe learns about an issue because of a personal experience. And then besides like wading through all of that, decides, well, I can help other people that might. Your story is just super inspiring.
Well, that's very
to
kind.
us.
Jen is starting to connect us to someone, and we were reading about that person, and they had an equation that was something to the effect of where pain meets purpose, it can spark innovation. And we
Wow.
thought that's exactly, this all came from this.
Make a
pain.
slide for
Isn't
that.
Yeah.
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 Maybe that goes.
That's very powerful.
It can go right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
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 So.
I'm gonna go ahead and turn the recording off, just,
you.
and again, thank you very much for coming.
Sure.